So Sarda might actually be the one to save the entire world in Two Blue Vortex. And today I'm going to explain exactly how her Mangekyo Sharingan is going to break Eida's omnipotence. To start things off, we need to talk about the Uchiha. Usually when we talk about this clan, it's all about the curse of hatred and how they get stronger by being miserable. You know, the usual stuff. But honestly, if you look at the mechanics, the Sharingan is basically just an eyeball that sees through lies. It sees chakra, it predicts movement, and it sees through genjutsu. Right now in Boruto, the main issue isn't really a physical fight, it's a war on reality itself, at least when it comes to omnipotence. Eida used it to literally rewrite the memories of everyone on the planet, swapping Boruto and Kawaki's lives. And the problem is, you can't just punch a memory, you can't Rasengan a fake reality. So to fix this, we need a very specific tool, and that brings us to Sarda. Her Mangekyo awakening was super unique because it wasn't triggered by someone dying or by hatred. It was triggered because she wanted to save Boruto. And I don't want to get this confused because that isn't the main factor behind the Mangekyo. It's more so tied to love itself and the loss of it. But one could argue that the application of this could influence how the powers manifest. And the theory that we're looking at is that her second ability is going to be the direct opposite of Itachi's Tsukuyomi. Instead of trapping someone in a nightmare, her Sun Genjutsu is going to break false realities and force someone to see the truth. And yeah, she's probably going to use the moon to broadcast it to the entire planet. But before we get to the crazy moon stuff, we have to understand what she's really up against. Let's talk about omnipotence. Momoshiki called this the ultimate shinjutsu, and basically it makes the user's desire come true. In Eida's case, she wanted to be loved, and she was confused about Kawaki to some extent. So her power just kind of hijacked the planet's Wi-Fi. It rewrote the collective memory of humanity. It didn't change the actual past. Photos and scars are still the same, but it forces people's brain to ignore the evidence. That is why Sasuke is struggling so hard. He's looking at Boruto's headband, but his brain is telling him, no, he's fighting a losing battle against his own mind. And as time goes on, the rewrite gets stronger, smoothing out the doubts. So even if they kill Eida right now, it might not actually fix anything because the memories have already settled in. We need something to actively flush the system. This then brings us to Sarda. A lot of people have been asking, why is she immune? And the recent chapters pretty much confirmed that she's immune because Eida wanted it to be so, subconsciously. One could argue that this somewhat influenced the development of her Mangekyo, because if Eida desired for Sarda to be immune and to see through the deception of omnipotence, maybe her Sharingan developed the ability to do so, which would then influence the power of any genjutsu ability she might obtain. I mean, I would even argue that Sarda's desire to reject the false reality where Boruto is the bad guy somewhat influenced the development of the Mangekyo as well, to be able to reveal the truth to the people of the village. This goes back to a video I did a few months ago where I explained that the experiences of the Uchihas influence the development of their Mangekyo abilities. We saw that with Obito, we saw that with Itachi and Shishui. I could go in detail again, but I don't think that's necessary. You guys can just go watch that video after this one. The point is that the mechanic is present to create this situation, but the problem is that she's just one person. She needs a way to get that truth out of her head and into everyone else's. And this is where we get into the more technical aspect of the inverse Tsukuyomi per se. If we look at Itachi, his whole vibe was the moon. His Tsukuyomi could control time, space, and the mass inside your head. He could torture you for 72 hours in a single second. It was all about dissociation, trapping you inside a fake world. Now take a look at Sarda. Her Mangekyo pattern is literally a sun, like it's a 8-pointed sun design. Kishimoto doesn't do that by accident. If she is the sun to Itachi's moon, her ability should be the opposite. Let's call it the Amaterasu mirror or something. So instead of injecting a fake world into someone's brain, her genjutsu would burn away any foreign chakra messing with your mind. It wouldn't create an illusion. it would destroy them. Basically, it syncs your brain up with objective reality. So let's say Sarda used this on Shikamaru. It would in essence burn through the layer of omnipotence. It wouldn't just tell him the truth. It would force his brain to look at the pictures, look at the inconsistencies, and actually process them without Eida's filters. It's like a moment of absolute clarity that you can't deny. And honestly, the symbolism supports this perfectly. In the mythology, Amaterasu is the sun goddess that hid in a cave, plunging the world into darkness. When she came out, the light returned. Right now, Sarda is pretty much in the cave phase. The world is in darkness and under a spell. Her power needs to be the light that brings everyone back. Plus, think about her goal. She wants to be the Hokage. Sasuke was all about combat, flames that never stop burning. But an Hokage needs to understand the people, needs to see the truth. A genjutsu that enforces the truth is way more fitting for a future leader than just another fireball jutsu. But here's the problem. Saving one person at a time is unrealistic. The entire planet is affected. She can't just walk up to every villager or every civilian on the planet in the 5 nations. That would take forever. So how does she fix everyone at once? Well, we've actually seen a planetary genjutsu broadcast before. Remember the infinite Tsukuyomi? Madara used the moon as a giant mirror to cast a genjutsu on the entire world. The theory here is that Sarda is going to do the exact same thing, but the reverse. She's going to project her sun genjutsu onto the moon. For a brief second, the moon will shine with her Mangekyo pattern. But instead of putting everyone to sleep, this infinite truth, for the lack of a better term of course, would hit everyone on the planet at the same time. Anyone looking up or even just anyone touched by the light would have that shattering moment. Eida's hold on their mind would just stop. And narratively this just makes sense. Why else is Sarda even here? If the solution is just beating up Eida, Boruto or Kawaki could handle it. But omnipotence is a shinjutsu. Logic dictates that you need a power on that level to counter it. The Uchiha have always been seen as the clan of lies, rebellion, and genjutsu. For the first Uchiha Hokage to save the world by forcing everyone to face the uncomfortable truth, that is somewhat perfect, in my opinion. And as a side note, it also solves the plot armor issue. Boruto doesn't want to kill Kawaki, he wants to save him. But he can't do that while the entire world is trying to hunt him down. If Sarda fixes everyone's memories, the military pressure on Boruto vanishes, and he can finally focus on dealing with Kawaki. Now I know that some of you are thinking that isn't this too overpowered? And yeah, it is. But Mangekyo abilities have always been overpowered, so this isn't anything new. And who knows, maybe the blindness factor comes into play and she can only use it once and then that's done with. So maybe Sarda does in the end sacrifice her own dojutsu to save the world. And that kinda removes it from the plot for the most part. And I also think that it doesn't have many use cases anyway, because if the jutsu is just to counter other genjutsus, then it's not really applicable in most battles. So it's just gonna be a one and done thing, which is kind of sad because I do want it to be something that we can see multiple times. But maybe it's more of a subset of her genjutsu ability. Maybe Sarda does get Tsukuyomi, which Itachi had, but she also gets this counter or full control over Tsukuyomi, where she can not just influence or induce Tsukuyomi, but she can also reverse it, which somewhat reminds me of Sasuke's situation with the Inferno Flame Control, because he awakened Amaterasu or received it from Itachi, whatever you guys want to think, but then he awakened Inferno Flame Control to gain further control over Amaterasu, which Itachi didn't possess. So maybe this new version of the ability that Sarda gets is more so just a full application of it, where it's not just inducing the control but also reversing it, as I just said. But that's just a theory, a game theory. I'm just kidding. Anyways, now there's also a tragic side to this as well, because the Son Genjutsu might force you to face reality, and for civilians that's great, but for Kawaki, he needs omnipotence to justify his existence. If the truth is revealed and everyone turns against Kawaki, he might go unstable and do something drastic like, destroying the Leaf Village, which by the way was somewhat hinted at in chapter 7 when Shikamaru suggested that Boruto reveal the truth, but who knows, we'll see what happens there. I will say that this also links to the Yadomir in some sense, and maybe I'll do a separate video that goes more in depth, but Itachi Susanoo had a shield that could reflect any attack. If Sarada is inheriting Itachi's will per se, her Sharingans might be the spiritual version of that mirror. She reflects the nature needed to negate the attack. So to wrap this up or recap in a sense, Omnipotence is a moon illusion. Sarda is the sun. She's going to use her eyes to broadcast a truth, shattering the fake reality and saving the world. It is somewhat wild and a bit crazy, I know, a bit out there, but I think that is where the story is going. But let me know what you guys think. Is Sarada going to be the MVP, or is she just going to Chidori someone and call it a day? Drop your comments below and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more Boruto theories. I'm working on a video on Himawari's potential next, so stay tuned for that one. Peace.